Hi, welcome to the channel. If you're new here, I am Jen and I am delighted to meet you. I've been on a carnivore diet for the last year and a half, and during that time, I've experienced radical healing from multiple autoimmune issues, namely psoriasis and vasculitis. So I will be forever grateful to this diet, and I have nothing bad to say about it. But for the last 9 months, I've been experiencing a couple of symptoms that aren't so great, specifically difficulty sleeping and weight gain. So for those reasons, I've decided to make a couple of changes to my formerly strict carnivore diet. A few weeks ago, I started wearing this continuous glucose monitor, and I decided to spend the time and money to get one for two reasons. One is I've had reason to believe that my blood sugar may be dropping too low, especially overnight, and I believe that may be causing my poor sleep and my weight gain. I was already suspicious of this for months because I previously had some very low blood sugars when testing with a finger stick glucose monitor, and because I briefly wore a CGM in the past that confirmed super low blood sugars, especially overnight. So long story short, I actually had a lot of issues with that CGM I had in the past, so I didn't have it for long, and so this time I decided to go with a different brand. But ultimately, my goal is to improve my blood sugar regulation, which, if my theory is correct, that will help my adrenals to no longer be constantly releasing cortisol. The other reason that I wanted to get a CGM is to closely monitor my blood glucose as I add a couple new foods back into my diet while attempting to get a handle on this blood sugar dysregulation issue. So again, for the last year and a half, I've been carnivore. I've eaten nothing but animal products with the exception of coffee most of the time. And it feels like the right thing for me to do right now to start playing with adding some plants in. For the record, I personally consider dairy as part of the carnivore diet, but I did cut it out of my diet for about 5 months, and I was still having all of these issues at that time. So if you feel like that's the answer, it wasn't the answer for me. But anyway, as I add foods back now, I just want to be really sure that I'm not super crazy high spiking my blood sugar and getting back on that blood glucose insulin roller coaster that I used to be on for years as a binge eater and a sugaraholic. Here's what I've learned so far. The next thing you're going to see is the first 3 days with my glucose monitor, the graphs from those days. So the first thing I ever noticed was that I was definitely right about my blood sugar getting too low overnight. I'm going to look here on my iPad and point out some things to you on these graphs that you're going to see. So you can see on the first day, September 3rd, at around 2 a.m., my blood sugar got down to almost 40. It was really low. And the line through the whole day is basically orange. That's because my blood glucose is lower than the Nutrisense app suggests it should be. They think it should be between 70 and 140, and I was mostly between 40 and 70 the whole time. So it's all orange. Now, moving on to the next day, September 4th, I had another pretty big drop overnight. And then the third day, September 5th, no giant drop that was just one thing in the morning, but lots of drops throughout the day starting in the middle of the night. So what I was concerned about was basically confirmed by these graphs that my blood sugar was too low most of the time and certainly getting too low overnight. So again, Nutrisense wants you to keep your blood sugar between 70 and 140. That's how their app is set up. My personal goal is to be more like 70 to 100 since I'm planning to stick to more of a low carb animal-based diet. So you see where I was starting. Now I'm going to show you the last 3 days. Today is September 22nd, and so I'm going to show you the 20th, the 21st, and today so far. On September 20th, you can see I did not have a giant drop overnight, and at this point, my graph is green because my blood sugar is staying up higher, 70 or above most of the time. So that's the case on September 20th, on September 21st, and so far today on September 22nd. No giant drop overnight and generally staying in the green. So I'm feeling really good about this. Now, my ultimate goal is to keep my blood sugars at the low end of normal, which I would consider somewhere around 70 or 80, and keep large spikes to a minimum, but raise glucose enough, especially in the evening, to prevent a big drop overnight. You saw for yourself what a struggle it was for me at the beginning and how much better I'm doing at it now, only 3 weeks later. But what those charts don't capture is some of the trial and error along the way. So here are a few very specific things that I learned related to my body as I've tried out different foods. Now, I didn't jump to this right out of the gate, but out of curiosity, a few days ago, I experimented with a not so animal-based food just to see what it would do with my blood sugar. And you can see this big spike here at about 10:30 a.m. That was from eating 2 of my boyfriend's peanut butter oatmeal energy balls. They have 20 grams of protein, 40 grams of carbs, and 17 grams of fat, which of course they're high in carbs, but they're also pretty high in protein and fat, and they're made of whole foods. So I thought that they may not be so bad for my blood sugar, but it turns out they've caused the highest glucose spike of anything I've eaten in the last 3 weeks. My glucose quickly went from 80 to 120 after eating them, even though they're made of whole food ingredients and real sugar like peanut butter, honey, oatmeal, and a few other things. So lesson learned, I will not be eating any of those, and I will kind of discourage him from eating them as well. I had a decent glucose spike that same evening too, but that one was planned. My dinner that night was chili and yogurt with walnuts and a berry blend. And the macros of that whole meal were 48 grams of protein, 31 grams of carbs, and 74 grams of fat. You can see that my glucose increased from about 90 to 110, but I believe that that helps prevent a big drop overnight, which is my goal. So I was happy with that. Another little experiment that I ran had to do with chocolate. Before I was carnivore, back in my keto days, I was obsessed with this brand of chocolate called Lily's. It's like fake sugar, right? No added sugar. So I thought it was healthy. And I would often eat a whole bar, sometimes more, thinking this is fine for my blood sugar. No big deal at all. Well, it turns out that I was definitely wrong about that. So on this day, September 7th, after eating the whole bar of Lily's milk chocolate with almonds, which has 6 grams of protein, 44 grams of carbs, but only 20 grams if you do the fancy math that makes you feel like this is no big deal. It's sugar alcohol. And 31 grams of fat, but my blood sugar increased from 75 to 105. So I talked about that with a nutrition counselor through the Nutrisense app, and she actually taught me that this is a very typical thing because sugar alcohols convert to glucose in the bloodstream. I had no idea that was the case. She recommended that if I'm going to be eating chocolate, which I promise I don't plan to do a lot of, but if I'm going to, I should choose from brands that use coconut sugar or organic cane sugar instead of sugar alcohols. And so she specifically suggested Green and Black's or Hue chocolate. Now that felt like an assignment from a teacher to me. So I felt like I had to do it, right? Well, I committed. And on September 11th in the morning at 7 a.m., I basically had chocolate for breakfast. So you can see here that my glucose went from 75 to 105, and that was with the Green and Black's organic milk chocolate. Now, it did come down pretty quickly, and the whole bar has 9 grams of protein, 46 grams of carbs, and 30 grams of fat. But not great, right? I didn't feel like it was great, but I felt like I had to complete that experiment. So a few days later on the 17th, I had a huge chocolate bar. And honestly, this one really surprised me. You can see here that when I had the Hue cashew butter bar at about 2 p.m., my blood sugar increased from 70 to 85. That's it. Now, I ate the entire bar, which has 6 grams of protein, 24 grams of carbs, and 26 grams of fat. So granted, it is a little bit smaller than the other chocolate bars, but it's still big, and I ate the whole thing. And I honestly think the biggest difference that was more blood sugar friendly is that the amount of fat compared to carbs in this bar versus the others was much higher. And I think that extra fat in the presence of carbs seems to have a protective effect against blood sugar spikes. Now, that's not the only place I've noticed that, so let's discuss that. Another big area I've noticed that is with protein shakes that I've been having daily. On September 13th, I tried raw milk and chocolate equipped prime protein for this first time, and I swear to you, it was like love at first taste. Oh my gosh. But it wasn't super great for my blood sugar. So it increased from 70 to 105. This was at about 3:30 in the afternoon. And to give you some perspective, 1 cup of raw milk plus 1 scoop of protein is 29 grams of protein, 13 grams of carbs, and 8 grams of fat. Now, I typically don't find that protein increases my blood sugar that significantly, but I have heard people say that protein powders, especially Dr. Annette Bosworth, by the way, that they can really increase sugar spikes. And I guess it's because the protein powder is powdered, doesn't require much digestion, and enters the bloodstream really quickly. And so it can just spike up blood sugar. That certainly seemed to be the case for me. So the next day I had the same thing, but I added half an avocado, and it changed the game completely. You can see here, I had my protein shake at about 1 p.m. and my blood sugar went from 70 to 78. That was all I got. So ever since then, I've eaten this chocolate protein shake every single day, but with the avocado. I have no guilt about it. It's so delicious. I love it. And it seems to be so blood sugar friendly. So I don't see why I shouldn't eat that. So let me just mention a couple things about the chocolate. Technically, I am having chocolate every day because I'm having chocolate in this protein every day, but I'm not eating chocolate candy bars all the time, rest assured. Those 3 different ones I did basically as an experiment just to see what would happen. And since then, I've had it once or twice, and I've chosen the Hu bar since it's the most blood sugar friendly, but that's definitely not a daily thing that I'm doing now or planning to do in the future. But honestly, the fact that I can even eat a chocolate bar without setting off into a huge multiple day, maybe multiple week binge episode is a literal miracle. I think it's a true testament to how healing the carnivore diet has been for me. For 3 weeks, I've been experimenting with all these different foods. I have not had one binge. So I feel like for the first time in my life, I can really truly say I am not a binge eater. Now, let's take a little break from all these charts for just a second, and I want to tell you why I chose specifically Nutrisense this time around instead of any of the other methods that I've used previously. So first of all, I want to closely monitor my blood sugar all day and all night. So a finger stick glucometer is out for this case. They are very handy for those who aren't trying to get as tight of control over blood sugar as I am. But I mean, I want constant feedback before and after I eat, during my sleep, and all of that. So based on that, I knew I wanted a CGM, and there are several reasons why I specifically chose Nutrisense. I mentioned earlier that I previously used another company, and I had one problem after another with that dang thing. I was constantly on the phone with customer service, and those were not particularly positive experiences. Very, very frustrating, and they didn't always solve my problems. And the app that I used with it was just difficult to navigate. It did not provide particularly insightful information. And so after about a month of using that, I just gave up and basically lost my money. I decided to give Nutrisense a try because I'd heard good things and I'd seen good things on social media. But let me tell you from my experience, it has been a dream compared to my previous experience. They do all the work to get you the prescription that you need for the CGM, and they send everything to your door so you don't have to mess with going to your doctor, you don't have to go through your insurance, you don't have to go to your pharmacy, you don't have to deal with any of that. Their customer service is fantastic, and I have had a couple of little kinks come up along the way, but they've solved every single one of them immediately. And honestly, the best part is the app is incredible. It's so easy to understand. It provides really incredible, valuable information like what I've shared with you so far today. And obviously you get all this helpful info about your own blood glucose readings, but there are actual full-on courses in the app that you can take for free to help you understand your glucose levels and how to optimize them. And if you're worried about comfort, just know that it is completely pain-free to apply this thing. It's super easy, no pain at all, and there's no discomfort with wearing it. I mean, I lay on this arm a lot when I sleep. I have no issues. I shower with it, sometimes bathe in a tub with it, work out with it, no issues at all. Now, mine is kind of low, so it does show with short sleeves, but I actually kind of like that because my patients will often see it, and that sparks a conversation about why I'm wearing it, what kind of diet I do, and why they might benefit too. Now, please know that Nutrisense is not sponsoring this video. This is my honest review. I do love it so much that I've become an affiliate, so if you choose to purchase one using my discount code, I will get a small commission, but otherwise I have no skin in the game. I actually had a referral code for that previous company I used, and I never recommended it because I hated it. Now, I'll be honest, it's not super cheap, but in my opinion, it's totally worth it. And the longer you sign up for, the cheaper it is, so definitely keep that in mind. I personally plan to have this one for probably at least 6 months, which puts it on the cheaper end of the choices. But honestly, after only 3 weeks, it feels like such a part of me. I don't know if I'll be able to part with it. It'd be like going without your phone, honestly. I kind of look at it as a prescription or a medical device that's keeping me healthy. And I've paid a lot more money in the past for other prescriptions and devices that have only made me sicker. So it's really easy for me to prioritize this. And one other thing I found that I was not expecting is that wearing a CGM, I swear, is like the most motivating thing I've ever done when it comes to my diet. You may have had the same experience with me when you track your food. When you're tracking, you eat so much better. But when you get sick of tracking or you mess up or you forget something or whatever, it's like you throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm personally tracking my food very closely right now, just so I'll have that objective data to share with you guys when I'm doing stuff like this, but I'm not going to do that forever. It's fairly time intensive and eventually I'll just get sick of it. Or I may start rebelling against it, which if you know, you know. But wearing the CGM is completely passive and it gives me the data whether I want it or not. I don't have to do anything for it, really. I love seeing a balanced blood sugar chart, and I get kind of bummed when I see that it gets too high or too low. So it's like this intrinsic motivation to make good choices and keep it where I want it to be. It turns out it's been the best accountability partner I've ever had. That right there is worth the money to me. Let's briefly touch on a topic that a lot of the carnivore experts talk about, which is that humans don't need carbs. Now, we do need some glucose for fuel, but I agree with these experts. We don't need carbs to get it. Our bodies can make it. They can make it from fat and protein through gluconeogenesis. And I am not here to refute that. I believe that that is completely true. I also believe that I personally could live a full, long life without ever eating a carb. But for me, based on the symptoms I'm experiencing, I'm not sure it would be an optimal life. I believe that my sleep would continue to suffer and that I would continue to struggle losing weight. And honestly, I would just prefer not to deal with that if I don't have to. I don't know for sure why that's the case with me, but one theory has to do with my liver. Now, I already know that I have some liver damage from years of taking immunosuppressants for my psoriasis. And so I think it's plausible that because gluconeogenesis takes place in the liver, that my liver may not be doing that process as efficiently as it should, and so it's not managing my blood sugar as well as it should. I don't know, that's just a theory. But the main point that I want to leave you with is to educate yourself as much as possible and really understand the theories about why your chosen diet is the best one for you. But then if things start going wrong, don't just keep trusting those theories, test them. I've been doing that a ton and it's been so insightful for me. So if you have any questions about my experience with the continuous glucose monitor, the one I had in the past or the one I have now, or about any of this stuff, just let me know in the comments. I promise I am an open book and no question is off limits. And if all you want to do is say, if you love it so much, why don't you marry it? I'll still respond and I'll say, if I could marry it, I would. If you found this video helpful, I would love it if you would like it or share it or even just let me know in the comments. And if you haven't already, I'd love it if you'd subscribe, and I will definitely be talking about this topic a lot more in the future if it interests you. Thank you so much for joining me today and for being a nerd who likes this kind of stuff just as much as I do. You are definitely my people, and I cannot wait to talk to you soon.